Hi, welcome back to Senior Savvy. I'm Katherine Goldberg. Today, we're going to talk about New York's moldy weed problem. New York, which has legal cannabis sold in dispensaries for very high tax prices, is moldy. And it's a huge problem. And I just found this out. So I am passing on what I've learned to you guys because this is absurd. So let's take a step back. New York has cannabis, right? In 2022, when it became legal, the people who make the laws in New York decided that the weed sold on the recreational side had to be grown outdoors. If you know anything about New York, you may know that it's really wet and it's not a good place to grow weed. So, of course, everything that was grown was super moldy and they couldn't just not sell it. So they made an adjustment and they said basically that for the medical side of things, we're going to have really strict testing standards when it comes to mold and yeast. We're only going to allow a certain amount, and if more is detected, we're not going to sell it. However, on the recreational side, basically they said, you have to test your cannabis for mold and yeast, and you have to report what that test says, but no amount is too much to sell on the legal market. Can we take a step back? So it could be all mold, and by that logic, it's absolutely fine to sell on the legal market. People think we're trying to pivot from the black market to the legal market for safety when the black market growers are taking better care of their plant than these guys. So here's the thing also is that you may say, okay, well, I can go into a dispensary and I can smell it. And if it smells funky, then, maybe I'll pass on it. I'll go to something else. No, because in New York, all the weed is sealed and locked up. So you can't smell it before you get home. And there are problems to smoking moldy weed. People have compromised immune systems. I'm shocked that this is happening and that people don't know, because I guess maybe the New York cannabis scene industry does know, but all the tourists who are coming to New York for cannabis tourism don't know. And what precedent does that set? It's really weird, to be perfectly honest. I don't really have a better way to put it. And I'm not going to say it's all the brands that are sold in the adult use market are tainted, but batch to batch, it's very unpredictable. So as a consumer, there are a couple of things you can do. The first is that you need to ask for the COA, the certificate of analysis, which is going to give you the lab readings. If you're not a scientist, it probably won't make that much sense, but you can take a picture of it and put it into an AI and say, can you explain this in regular English? Then you'll get some feedback. If you live in New York and you are a cannabis consumer, get your medical card. Why not? There's absolutely no reason not to do that when it comes down to the quality of the product. And you can do it with telehealth. I just saw that LeafWell, which is one of my preferred telehealth vendors to go to, has a sale for 42% off right now. If you use the discount code 420 sale at checkout, it's 42% off. But I wrote a blog post about this today, and someone wrote, well, what's the solution? I would say that the first thing is to grow weed in places where weed is meant to be grown, like Northern California, Oregon, Colorado, Maine during the summers, and make it legal to be able to send that product to other states where the weather may not permit it to grow the absolute best it can. Um, the fact that you you have to grow the weed to sell in the state, it is so backwards. I can't even think of another crop or another product that's manufactured on a large scale within regulations that is not allowed to be sent out of the state. I mean, clearly doing this state by state, it has not really worked. So some sort of overarching law, I think, could help. I don't really have the solution. I'm just here to tell you what I know. So here's the thing. If you are visiting New York and you're going to the dispensary to buy legal weed as a tourist, ask the bud tenders. Say that you've heard murmurings of the moldy flower, and is there anything that you have smoked or have smelled yourself that you would recommend that seems like a good batch right now? Because you don't want to get home and then open it up and have it smell weird and like have to go call the dispensary and I don't know. Anyway, I also have a blog post about how to spot moldy weed because not everyone knows how to spot it. But I was stunned because in California, the weed is the weed. The only thing that's different from adult use, recreation to medical use is the taxes. You just pay less tax with medical. But the fact that in New York, there's no threshold for amount of mold or yeast or bacteria detected, like you just have to say it's there. In what universe does that make sense? So I'm thankful it was brought to my attention. Um, I hope changes are made. I laughed when someone said that their, black market dealer put more care into his plants than these big brands, and I don't doubt it. And this is also another reason I think that hopefully um, home grow is legal in New York. I think grow your own, then you know what's really in it. So I hope this at least brought a little bit of attention to an issue that most people don't know about. They just assume that if you're buying legal weed at a 13% tax rate, it's clean and safe. And that's not the case. So I appreciate you listening and I hope you learned something. And we'll be back next week. Thanks. Bye.